Hey y'all, once again, YouTube was just buffering, so hopefully we'll be okay now. Um, and thank you for joining me. This is great. I'm happy to know that Sarah is here, and Nick and Lydia and James. So happy that you all decided to join tonight. It's um, it's been a kind of slow day for me, which is okay. Um, and so I'm happy to have this time to just kind of settle in and relax with you guys. Um, yeah. So I've been looking at a lot of different ideas about what we could read, what we could talk about tonight. And what I decided to do later for our guided meditation is actually to read to you the 14 mindfulness trainings. And then I'll just give you a minute or so after each one to think about it, to meditate on it. I think it'll make a good meditation, but then you can tell me what you think afterwards. And of course, we will be moving to Zoom after our YouTube part. So let me put that link in the meditation in the chat box for you. Um, so of course things are not turning out the way I'd like them to. Okay, forget about that. Um, Sorry, I'll have to find it another way. Hopefully, James or Nick can put it in our chat box while we're talking here. So I was just kind of um, waiting a little bit to see if other people want to join in. Um, and let me talk about the 14 mindfulness trainings first, and then we'll do our contemplation and check in and all that stuff. So this is what Thich says about the 14 mindfulness trainings. The 14 mindfulness trainings are the very essence of the order of interbeing. They are the torch lighting our path, the boat carrying us, the teacher guiding us. They allow us to touch the nature of interbeing in everything that is, and to see that our happiness is not separate from the happiness of others. Interbeing is not a theory, it is a reality that can be directly experienced by each of us at any moment in our daily lives. The 14 mindfulness trainings help us cultivate concentration and insight, which free us from fear and the illusion of a separate self. So I've been obviously looking over the 14 mindfulness trainings in the last few days, and I think they're very, very relevant to what's going on now. And if you've never heard the 14 mindfulness trainings before, I think you'll find it similar to the 5, but also um, a little more, there's a little more to it. So I'm going to invite the bell and then read the contemplation, and we'll begin. Contemplation before sitting. The Sangha is invited to go back to our breathing, so that our collective energy of mindfulness brings us together as an organism, going as a river, with no more separation. Let the whole Sangha breathe as one body, generate peace as one body, be free as one body. Let us transcend the boundaries of a delusive self, liberating ourselves from the superiority complex, the inferiority complex, and the equality complex. We are aware that the happiness and suffering of all people is also our own happiness and suffering. We see ourselves in all people and all people in ourselves. We are one with those caught in situations of oppression. We are also one with the oppressors. We are one with the wise and good people who are present everywhere in the world. We are one with those who are able to embrace the whole of this world with their heart of love and their two arms of caring action. We are a people with enough peace, joy, and freedom to be able to offer fearlessness and the joy of life to living beings around us. The love and the joy of great beings who are present in this world are supporting us, not allowing us to drown in despair, and showing us the way of understanding, compassion, and right action. So I invite you to settle into your comfortable space. Maybe close your eyes or direct your gaze down, very unfocused. Gaze directed down toward the floor. And let's just take a couple of centering breaths. And then return to your normal breathing. And I invite you to listen and contemplate the first mindfulness training, openness. Aware of the suffering created by fanaticism and intolerance, we are determined not to be idolatrous about or bound to any doctrine, theory, or ideology, even Buddhist ones. We are committed to seeing the Buddhist teachings as guiding means that help us develop our understanding and compassion. They are not doctrines to fight, kill, or die for. We understand that fanaticism in its many forms is the result of perceiving things in a dualistic and discriminative manner. We will train ourselves to look at everything with openness and the insight of interbeing in order to transform dogmatism and violence in ourselves and in the world. Let's take a minute to think about that and let it sink in. The second of the 14 mindfulness trainings, non-attachment to views. Aware of the suffering caused by attachment to views and wrong perceptions, We are determined to avoid being narrow-minded and bound to present views. We are committed to learning and practicing non-attachment to views and being open to others' experience and insights in order to benefit from the collective wisdom. We are aware that the knowledge we presently possess is not changeless absolute truth. Insight is revealed through the practice of compassionate listening, deep looking, and letting go of notions rather than through the accumulation of intellectual knowledge. Truth is found in life, and we will observe life within and around us in every moment, ready to learn throughout our lives. So let's take a minute to reflect on the second of the 14 mindfulness trainings. The third mindfulness training, freedom of thought. Aware of the suffering brought about when we impose our views on others, we are determined not to force others, even our children, by any means whatsoever, such as authority, threat, money, propaganda, or indoctrine, to adopt our views. We are committed to respecting the rights of others to be different, to choose what to believe and how to decide. We will, however, learn to help others let go of and transform fanaticism and narrowness through loving speech and compassionate dialogue. Now let's take a minute to contemplate the third training, freedom of thought. The fourth of the 14 mindfulness trainings, awareness of suffering. Aware that looking deeply at the nature of suffering can help us develop understanding and compassion, we are determined to come home to ourselves, to recognize, accept, embrace, and listen to suffering with the energy of mindfulness. We will do our best not to run away from our suffering or cover it up through consumption, but practice conscious breathing and walking to look deeply into the roots of our suffering. We know we can realize the path leading to the transformation of suffering only when we understand deeply the roots of suffering. Once we have understood our own suffering, we will be able to understand the suffering of others. We are committed to finding ways, including personal contact and using telephone, electronic, audiovisual, and other means, to be with those who suffer, so we can help them transform their suffering into compassion, peace, and joy. So Let's take a minute to reflect on the fourth of the 14 trainings, awareness of suffering. The fifth of the 14 mindfulness trainings, compassionate, healthy living. Aware that true happiness is rooted in peace, solidity, freedom, and compassion, we are determined not to accumulate wealth while millions are hungry and dying, nor to take as the aim of our life fame, power, wealth, or sensual pleasure, which can bring much suffering and despair. We will practice looking deeply into how we nourish our body and mind with edible foods, sense impressions, volition, and consciousness. We are committed not to gamble or to use alcohol, drugs, or any other products which bring toxins into our own and the collective body and consciousness, such as certain websites, electronic games, music, TV programs, films, magazine, books, and conversations. We will consume in a way that preserves compassion, well-being, and joy in our bodies and consciousness, and in the collective body and consciousness of our families, our society, and the earth. Let's take a moment to contemplate the fifth training, compassionate, healthy living. The sixth of the 14 mindfulness trainings, taking care of anger. Aware that anger blocks communication and creates suffering, we are committed to taking care of the energy of anger when it arises, and to recognizing and transforming the seeds of anger that lie deep in our consciousness. When anger manifests, we are determined not to do or say anything, but to practice mindful breathing or mindful walking, to acknowledge, embrace, and look deeply into our anger. We know that the roots of anger are not outside of ourselves, but can be found in our wrong perceptions and lack of understanding of the suffering in ourselves and others. By contemplating impermanence, we will be able to look with the eyes of compassion at ourselves and at those we think are the cause of our anger, and to recognize the preciousness of our relationships. We will practice right diligence in order to nourish our capacity of understanding, love, joy, and inclusiveness, gradually transforming our anger, violence, and fear, and helping others do the same. We'll take 1 minute to contemplate taking care of anger. The seventh of the 14 mindfulness trainings, dwelling happily in the present moment. Aware that life is available only in the present moment, we are committed to training ourselves to live deeply each moment of daily life. We will try not to lose ourselves in dispersion or be carried away by regrets about the past, worries about the future, or craving, anger, or jealousy in the present. We will practice mindful breathing to be aware of what is happening in the here and the now. We are determined to learn the art of mindful living by touching the wondrous, refreshing, and healing elements that are inside and around us in all situations. In this way, we will be able to cultivate seeds of joy, peace, love, and understanding in ourselves, thus facilitating the work of transformation and healing in our consciousness. We are aware that real happiness depends primarily on our mental attitude and not on external conditions, and that we can live happily in the present moment simply by remembering that we already have more than enough conditions to be happy. Let's contemplate the seventh mindfulness training, dwelling happily in the present moment. The eighth of the 14 mindfulness trainings, true community and communication. Aware that lack of communication always brings separation and suffering, we are committed to training ourselves in the practice of compassionate listening and loving speech. Knowing that true community is rooted in inclusiveness and in the concrete practice of the harmony of views, thinking, and speech, we will practice to share our understanding and experiences with members in our community in order to arrive at a collective insight. We are determined to learn to listen deeply without judging or reacting, and refrain from uttering words that can create discord or cause the community to break. Whenever difficulties arise, we will remain in our Sangha and practice looking deeply into ourselves and others to recognize all the causes and conditions, including our own habit energies, that have brought about the difficulties. We will take responsibility for the ways we may have contributed to the conflict and keep communication open. We will not behave as a victim, but be active in finding ways to reconcile and resolve all conflicts, however small. Let's take a moment to contemplate true community and communication. The ninth mindfulness training, truthful and loving speech. Aware that words can create happiness or suffering, we are committed to learning to speak truthfully, lovingly, and constructively. We will use only words that inspire joy, confidence, and hope, as well as promote reconciliation and peace in ourselves and among other people. We will speak and listen in a way that can help ourselves and others to transform suffering and see the way out of difficult situations. We are determined not to say untruthful things for the sake of personal interest or to impress people, nor to utter words that might cause division or hatred. We will protect our happiness and the harmony of our Sangha by refraining from speaking about the faults of other persons in their absence and always ask ourselves whether our perceptions are correct. We will speak only with the intention to understand and help transform the situation. We will not spread rumors, nor criticize or condemn things of which we are not sure. We will do our best to speak out about situations of injustice, even when doing so may cause difficulties for us or threaten our safety. Let's take a moment to contemplate truthful and loving speech. The 10th of the 14 mindfulness trainings, protecting and nourishing the Sangha. Aware that the essence and aim of a Sangha is the realization of understanding and compassion, we are determined not to use the Buddhist community for personal power or profit, or transform our community into a political instrument. As members of a spiritual community, we should nonetheless take a clear stand against oppression and injustice. We should strive to change the situation without taking sides in a conflict. We are committed to learning to look with the eyes of interbeing, to see ourselves and others as cells in one Sangha body. As a true cell in the Sangha body, generating mindfulness, concentration, and insight to nourish ourselves and the whole community, each of us is at the same time a cell in the Buddha body. We will actively build brotherhood and sisterhood, flow as a river, and practice to develop the three real powers: understanding, love, and cutting through afflictions, to realize collective awakening. We'll take a moment to contemplate protecting and nourishing the Sangha. The 11th of the 14 mindfulness trainings, right livelihood. Aware that great violence and injustice have been done to our environment and society, we are committed not to live with a vocation that is harmful to humans and nature. We will do our best to select a livelihood that contributes to the well-being of all species on Earth and helps realize our ideal of understanding and compassion. Aware of economic, political, and social realities around the world, as well as our interrelationship with the ecosystem, we are determined to behave responsibly as consumers and as citizens. We will not invest in or purchase from companies that contribute to the depletion of natural resources, harm the earth, or deprive others of their chance to live. And we'll take a moment to contemplate right livelihood. The 12th of the 14 mindfulness trainings, reverence for life. Aware that much suffering is caused by war and conflict, we are determined to cultivate nonviolence, compassion, and the insight of interbeing in our daily lives and promote peace education, mindful meditation, and reconciliation within families, communities, ethnic and religious groups, nations, and in the world. We are committed not to kill and not to let others kill. We will not support any act of killing in the world, in our thinking, or in our way of life. We will diligently practice deep looking with our Sangha to discover better ways to protect life, prevent war, and build peace. Let's take a moment to contemplate reverence for life. The 13th of the 14 mindfulness trainings, generosity. Aware of the suffering caused by exploitation, social injustice, stealing, and oppression, we are committed to cultivating generosity in our way of thinking, speaking, and acting. We will practice loving kindness by working for the happiness of people, animals, plants, and minerals, and sharing our time, energy, and material resources with those who are in need. We are determined not to steal and not to possess anything that should belong to others. We will respect the property of others, but will try to prevent others from profiting from human suffering or the suffering of other beings. Let's contemplate for a minute generosity. And the last of the 14 mindfulness trainings, true love. Aware that sexual desire is not love and that sexual relations motivated by craving cannot dissipate the feeling of loneliness, but will create more suffering, frustration, and isolation. We are determined not to engage in sexual relations without mutual understanding, love, and a deep, long-term commitment made known to our family and friends. Seeing that body and mind are one, we are committed to learning appropriate ways to take care of our sexual energy and to cultivate loving kindness, compassion, joy, and inclusiveness for our own happiness and the happiness of others. We must be aware of future suffering that may be caused by sexual relations. We know that to preserve the happiness of ourselves and others, we must respect the rights and commitments of ourselves and others. We will do everything in our power to protect children from sexual abuse and to protect couples and families from being broken by sexual misconduct. We will treat our bodies with compassion and respect. We are determined to look deeply into the four nutriments and learn ways to preserve and channel our vital energies for the realization of our bodhisattva ideal. We will be fully aware of the responsibility of bringing new lives into the world and will regularly meditate upon their future environment. Now let's take a minute to contemplate true love. Well, hello again. I don't know if any of you had heard the 14 mindfulness trainings before. I feel sure that you heard echoes of the five, which we recite every month. Contemplating these trainings over the last few days and during the demonstrations and the protests that we've seen going on, I was just struck by how relevant they are and how they provide for us these guidelines of how to behave in this kind of environment. I really am wanting to know what you would say about the 14 mindfulness trainings. And let me just say a little bit in case some of you are not familiar with these trainings and why did I read them? These 14 mindfulness trainings are what we make a commitment to. It's what we pledge to observe when we join the Order of Interbeing. There is a transmission ceremony during which we are asked to not only accept but to receive the transmission of these trainings. Prostrations are involved, and it's a very moving and powerful transmission. It brings home clearly what we're committing to. And what I did not know until I was ordained in 2017, I did not know that the monks and nuns make a commitment to these same 14 mindfulness trainings. They follow other precepts as well. And of course, the 14th mindfulness training, which I read to you, is for lay people. The monks and nuns take a vow of celibacy. But this is how closely aligned the order of inner being is with Thich Nhat Hanh's ideal of a fourfold community, meaning monks, nuns, lay men, lay women, fourfold community. And there's a lot of emphasis, you may have recognized, on the Sangha. One of the things that we as Order of Inner Being members are really called to do is either build Sangha, nourish a Sangha, create a new Sangha. There's a lot, we are kind of commissioned to really support the Sangha. And that's why, and I hope James will talk about this a little when we go over to Zoom. That's why I'm so happy that James is going to start an Earth Holders Sangha, which will be a part of what we offer through the Dallas Meditation Center. That particular Sangha not only upholds all of these trainings, but also really focuses on taking care of the earth and all of the inhabitants of the earth. So I'll let him tell you a little more about that later, I hope. So I put in the chat box the Zoom link, and I'll just pause here a moment to see if anybody wants to put anything in the chat box before we skip over to Zoom. I noticed that Jennifer and Cornell joined us while we were in the meditation. And so welcome to the two of you. I'm waiting to see if I guess you're waiting to see if you can talk when we see each other. So why don't we do that? I'm going to close us out here with the closing chant that we use, and I think we'll do sharing the merit when we finish our Zoom meeting. So let me invite one sound of the bell. Countless beings we vow to free, ceaseless afflictions we vow to end, limitless dharma doors we vow to open, the deepest paths of awakening we vow to realize. So we'll make our way over to Zoom. I hope you've all copied that link. And so I'll see you there.